patient's view on research. And now we're having Fernanda putting up a Brazilian version as a patient and how they see these research trials going and based on the declaration of type A. So Fernanda Carvalho worked for 30 years in global companies, advising CEOs and coordinating teams in Brazil and Latin America, participating in global committees dedicated to communication, crisis management, and reputation management. In Brazil, works as a public and international affairs at Instituto, Lado, pela Vida, side by side for life, a leading organization committed to provide healthcare education in Brazilian society. As of 2023, she took a seat at Advocacy Committee of the World Heart Foundation. In November 2023, she has been elected as a member of the governing board of IAPO, International Alliance of Patients Organizations. She actively participates in advisory boards with a greater emphasis on cardiovascular diseases and is part of the groups that produce studies and articles for scientific publications. So please, Fernanda, have your place here and please give us your vision.
Good morning, everyone. I will ask you that I'm going to speak in Portuguese. I'm Brazilian and I am in my country, so I think it's going to be better if I speak in Portuguese. But of course, after, if you have question and answers, you can do in English. Senhoras e senhores.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be here and to represent the International Alliances of Patient Organizations, IAPO, as a member and secretary of the board. Also, my original organization, Instituto, Lado, pela Vida, associated member of IAPO since 2014. I bring now the voice of patients, family members, and carers in Brazil and the world. IAPO, it's a global alliance that pioneers and organizes patient associations in all health areas all over the world. Founded in 1999, is the only global alliance with actor status, non-state actor, together with the World Health Organization, and also works as a consultant with ECOSOC, the Social and Economic Council for the UN. Our mission is to certify that the point of view of the patient is integrated to policies and decisions related to health in all levels, promoting care centered in the experience of the patient as a fundamental right. Recently, because of its 10th anniversary of the National Consent Framework for Ethical Collaboration, our CEO, Dani Mochi, published an article together with leaders of the World Medical Association, the organizer of this meeting, and other global federations for health. And it was highlighted during this publication the use of AI and other technologies represent the next frontier of international collaboration. The framework, already adopted by 14 countries, including Brazil, incorporated a fifth principle dedicated to the data governance and technology. This evolution shows that governance of data has become a central axis of ethics in health. As I mentioned this document, I would like to greet Dr. Ottoman Kreuber, General Secretary of the World Medical Association. I imagine that he is present. There he is. and he was a partner in the drafting of this article. In 2016, the Taipei Declaration established fundamental principles for data banks and biobanks and acknowledged the secondary use of data needs safeguards that are robust and also responsible governance. But we are in 2026 now, and the data ecosystem has changed drastically. Data is now combined, crossed, analyzed by AI, and they are transformed in predictive reference. The anonymization, it's not a guarantee. Models learn continuously. Inference go beyond the original scope. So the question that we need to ask ourselves is very direct. Does the current language is enough to manage the ethics in the technological world of today? The declaration established in the right way the format, but what does it mean informed consent when the algorithm produce future inferences that are not predictable? The broad consent was a pragmatic solution back in 2016. Into 2026, maybe that's not enough. If these future inferences are not completely foreseeable, we need to evolve to new consent models that are more dynamic, with continuous transparency and the real possibility of re-engagement. Consent must be a process and not an isolated event. The same goes for the withdrawal right. When the data have already trained the algorithm, what does that mean? If a complete exclusion is not possible, technically, there must be mitigation mechanisms, and those need to be reviewed. We need to explicitly acknowledge the limits of anonymization. The crossing of database could make it possible for re-identification, and the data protection is a permanent commitment for any risk situation. The volume, sensibility, and the power of prediction in the data increase exponentially. These data are not only individual, they are relational. They affect families and communities. Incidental findings could have generational impact. The balance between the right of knowledge and right of not knowing are even more complex in the age of personalized medicine. The declaration needs to reinforce regarding governance and omic data, acknowledging its shared nature, the implied risks, and the ethical dimension for family and community. Governance needs to evolve. The Taipei Declaration demands governance structure for data banks and biobanks, but doesn't establish participation of patients within this mechanism. If the data carries identity, vulnerability, and a life, excluding patients from governance is not only a gap, it's an ethical incoherence. Nothing about us without us should be a normative demand. It's a moral principle that is implied. As also, we need to approach algorithm governance. Today, models that are trained with clinical data can influence medical decision, guide public policy creation, and access to treatment. The decision needs to have principles regarding auditing, the impact on equity, human supervision, data responsibility, and damages that might happen. Without this, we will govern the collection but not the real use of the data. It's also fundamental to discuss social benefit when this data offers commercial innovation. It's not about blocking advancement. It's about balancing innovation with distributive justice and transparency. Data ecosystems goes beyond the traditional clinical environment. Traditional platforms and behavioral platforms feed analysis that are integrated globally. Ethical principles must follow the data flow, including in trans-border transfer, assuring equivalent standards for protection. We also cannot ignore structural inequality. Vulnerable population cannot be disproportionately exposed to risk or excluded from the benefits resulting from the research. In the center of everything, we have trust and responsibility. Without trust, patients will not share their data. Without sharing the data, we don't have a robust science. Without the robust science and responsible science, we cannot have sustainable innovation. We are reviewing a normative document, but we are changing the ethical architecture of digital health. We want a system that concentrates power or that distributes benefits. We want a system that treats patients as source of information, or do we want moral partners? As patient representatives, meaning all of us in some point in our lives, and also our families in some point in their lives, we state we are willing to share our data. We are willing to contribute to science. We are willing to leverage innovation. But we need to be part of the decision. We need clear warranty for equity. And we need that governance follows technology. IAPO is willing to be part of the revision, and we will contribute with the patient perspective in each stage of the work. Recently, by the way, our CEO Denimote, together with other 15 global leaders in health, wrote an open letter to the member states of the OMS asking concrete commitment as a global landmark regarding data governance in health. We are therefore facing a convergence of efforts, and this revision should and must follow. And this revision should not be a technical update, and it should an ethical reinforcement so we can look back in 2036 and say that we chose to govern the digital revolution with courage, inclusion, and justice. Thank you. I think I used a little less than my allotted time, so I would like to have a reflection with you all before we have any possible questions. I briefly mentioned that when we talk about the patient, one of our worries is that this subject is always in the third person. But in truth, they should be the first person, because all of us either are or have been or will be patients in some point. And I'm talking about families as well. So we cannot look at the patient as a excluded person in the process when we talk about the definition of what all of this is about when we talk about data. So this is an important reflection. And IATA and the organization do Lado, pela Vida, we need to talk to them as equals, independently of the moment in their lives. That's a little reflection that I would like to have you all consider so we can work together. There's no should the patient be part of it. This is implied. We all have to participate as individuals, because at some point in our lives we can become patients. Thank you.
I might ask is if you could stay for the next roundtable, that we're going to have a discussion, so we can start now our second talks, because we're just in time. Happy